January is almost always a slow month for games. After the big holiday rush, most developers decide to take a well-earned break and hold off on releasing any more games for a bit so that everyone can play the stuff they brought during the sales. It's a familiar rhythm by now. But that's what makes it so weird that January 2026 is bizarrely full of amazing games that a lot of you probably missed because you weren't expecting them all to come out now. Possibly due to the fact that you're recovering from the obligatory week-long post-New Year's hangover, but who am I to judge? Luckily, that's where I come in. Now, if you're familiar with the channel, you'll know that I usually reserve my big annual game recommendation video for the end of the year, but there have been so many titles coming out over the last 30 days that I desperately think people should play that I'm going to give doing a smaller monthly version a go as well. For those not familiar, this list isn't going to focus on the best games of the month, nor is it going to focus on the most popular. So, no, Hytale or everyone's other favourite games starting with Highguard aren't going to be on it. Instead, it's all about the games from the last month that you should have played, but that you probably didn't. And to help you amend that, I'm going to put the best deal I can find for each game on the list, and whether or not they have a demo, up here in the corner. Yep, you see that? Cool, nice. Without any further ado, here are 5 games from January 2026 that you should have played. Starting with TR49. A game that I initially thought that I was going to hate, but let me tell you, I have never had a more dramatic turnaround on a game before. TR49 is an interface-driven mystery game in the vein of Her Story, Obra Dinn, or The Root Trees Are Dead. But instead of giving you a nice clean corkboard or a computer to work with, you instead need to organise a bunch of weird, esoteric, corrupted books using an ancient, slightly haunted World War II era database. To say that this thing is obtuse is a massive fucking understatement. The commands and structure of the database appear nonsensical, and you're given very little direction at all early on. But, bit by bit, as you chip away at the weird commands, piece together the connections, and begin to uncover all the hidden functions, you start seeing past the codes and corruption to reach this island of logic on the other side as it all starts to make sense, and the really quite good story starts to slot into place. The game is great, please stick with it past the opening 15 minutes, go play it. After that, we've got Don't Stop Girlypop. Finally, they've made Ultra Kill for boys. Now, the thing I love most about this one isn't just how hard it commits to its theme of utterly over-the-top mid-noughties tween girl game aesthetics with saccharine pop numbers blaring and glossy reflections and sparkles everywhere, but the fact that beneath that is a fucking delicious movement shooter that ties your accuracy and your health regen to how fast you're going. Meaning that in order to stay alive in the packed arenas and to clear them efficiently, you've got to be wave dashing and grappling around at super speed, flinging off combos with your gun so fast that it's hard to keep up. Beneath its garishly cutesy retro exterior, Don't Stop Girlypop is a modern movement shooter that can easily go blow for blow with the favourites. And yes, of course there's a dress-up minigame for your guns, why even ask? That's obviously a thing they're going to include, and that I'm very surprised more games haven't. Next, we've got a little title by the name of Vital Shell. Now, I know what you're thinking, it looks like one of a million different Vampire Survivors knockoffs, but hold on, while it might look retro, what Vital Shell represents is an evolution on that now well-established format. Rather than just being a game of mindless dopamine, Vital Shell is fast, slick, and strategic, with you alternating between dancing around these arenas in your cool polygon mech and, gasp, making actual choices when it comes to your build. Also, what I really like about this one is that Vital Shell actually commits to the PS1 aesthetic. Rather than just settling for some chunky polygons, here, everything from the UI to the soundtrack to the scope of the game feels authentically kitsch and clunky as if it really did come from the 20th century. Of course, if it had done, you'd have heard of it by now. Vital Shell is great. On the flip side, now we've got Mio Memories in Orbit, and it is a case of something dead simple done really, really well. Mio is a Metroidvania that does everything right. It's got a sprawling world to explore that's always getting bigger and connects around to itself in some really fun ways. It's got great platforming, it's got a really cool story about a spaceship that's falling to bits, and it's got acrobatic combat that wisely stays on the softer side of hardcore silksongy difficulty. Essentially, in a world where it feels like people are constantly trying to mash the Metroidvania up with new stuff, and when Nintendo has seemingly completely forgotten how to make the damn things, Mio is a case study on how to do it right. The game is accessible, it's slick, and it's packed with a bunch of cool surprises. Seriously, the first major upgrade you get is a cool grappling hook, and it only gets better from there. If you want a gentler introduction to the genre, or just something to jump around in and soak up these sci-fi vibes, then Mio is the #1 answer to a question that I'm assuming you've asked. And finally, the game from January 2026 that you most owe it to yourself to play is Cairn. A game that I was absurdly excited for before it came out, and has blown away my expectations since. Cairn is, at its most simple, a climbing game in the vein of White Knuckle, Peak, or Lorne's Lure. But where those games try and make climbing quick and streamlined, Cairn goes in the absolute other direction, turning every ascent into a harrowing journey of survival, where you have to manually move your limbs to brace against rock faces, cling to tiny gaps, and force yourself up sheer crevasses. The climbing in Cairn is brutal, both in terms of the difficulty and the emotional stress it causes, particularly when the voice actor for Ava is giving a brilliantly authentic performance of terror, frustration, and pain as she climbs. It's tough work, and that's not even considering all the survival systems you have to manage as you climb, like your temperature, the state of your hands, and your limited supplies. But in that grueling approach to climbing, Cairn taps into the fundamental joy of these kinds of games, and that's in giving you a chance to push against your limits and achieve something that feels truly worthwhile because it was difficult. Something that other games have attempted to evoke, but none have quite succeeded anywhere near as well as Cairn. The game's not all stressful and depressing though, don't worry. Cairn is also an absolutely gorgeous game with a truly surprising amount of little side quests and stories to follow as you climb, as well as loads of hidden areas to find that let you take a break and really help mix up the adventure. I will never forget when I found a secret rave site blasting the soundtrack to Fury, another game by the devs of Cairn, or this grumpy lady and her pet goats that she generously allowed me to steal a bunch of milk from. Cairn is the undisputed queen of the climbing game, and if you haven't played the demo already, you really owe it to yourself to give it a go. It's fantastic. This video was brought to you by the Architect of Games patrons and YouTube members, the very cool, very clever, very sexy people that you can see on your screen right now. Wow, look at them go. If you'd like to join these people, then all you've got to do is support the channel via one of the two methods I just mentioned, and in exchange, you won't just get early access to videos like this, behind the scenes content, and your name in the credits, you'll also get access to 3 extra bonus games from this month that you should also play, as well as my thoughts on them. Isn't that cool? And don't worry, if you've not got the cash to support directly, then subscribing, commenting, and sharing this video, and doing all that sort of stuff is almost as good as supporting for real, but you know, let's be real, it's not quite as good as being a real supporter, and it's definitely not as good as being one of my special $10 a month mysterious benefactors, who are Ali Wright, Andrew Lebrano, Auna94, Baroness Caroline, Bobby, Constantine Amend, Cosmix360, Daniel Metjes, Daniel Ursin, Dat Ellie, Dirk Jan Karrenbeld, Digleteer, Dis Ellie, Ekton, Edward Franklin Woods, Edwina the Space Bun, Eric Woolston, Eugene Bulkin, Fullabaxi, Furious Hulk, Gazkull, How, Hecate Noah, I Support Trans Rights, Jacob Dylan Riddle, Jinkaloid, Kevin Help Us, Konolov, Kangi, Leap Year Everyday, Luke Kokoran, Mace154, Mark Vallant, Mika Oi, Michael C, Mike Oxlong, Nate Graff, Oliver Marhofer, Patrick Romberg, Peter Tomasic, RedditX, Regal Regex, Sandemus Phone Booth Club, Seslux, Silver Folfy, Tyler Duncan, Timotheus Becksack, Whimsical Wisp, Zach Brandmeier, and Ciao. Okay, that's it from me. Hope you enjoyed this weird experiment, and the latest real video will be with you hopefully quite soon. Alright, bye!